What's up everyone, my name is Jesse and welcome to my channel. Today we're finna be replacing the front struts on my 2004 Mercury Grand Marquis. I've noticed clunky noises while driving and the Merc is hella bouncy, so it's time to replace those old struts. First off, let me show you guys how bouncy the car is. Bruh, these struts are completely worn out. My brother must have had too much backseat action before selling me the car. I can't be driving like this. Let's set the emergency parking brake. Then break loose the 21mm wheel lug nuts while the car is still on the ground. This makes it easier to remove the wheel when the car is lifted. I'll be using a 1/2 inch ratchet and the floor jack handle for extra leverage. Next, position the floor jack underneath the car's front jacking point and lift the vehicle until the wheel is off the ground. Always secure the car with jack stands for safety. With the car safely lifted, go ahead and remove the wheel. Then start the car and turn the wheel to gain better access to the brake caliper and bracket bolts. Now, I'm removing the two 18mm caliper bracket bolts, but it's easier if you take off the caliper and brake pads first so the brake assembly isn't so heavy when you're putting it back on. Alright, let's remove the sway bar link. There's two nuts, one in the front, one in the back. Start with the upper nut. It's usually a 14 or 15mm. Now remove the nut on the other side using a wrench. A swivel wrench makes things smoother and faster. The sway bar link was on tight, so I'm moving to the next step. Let's start by removing the 21mm nut on the upper control arm. These bolts could be on tight, so take your time. I'm right out the way. Oh. Now we can remove the three top 13mm nuts holding the strut in place. You'll need a deep socket or a wrench for this. Next, take off the lower strut 24mm nut. Move the control arm away from the strut, then pry out the strut while pushing down on the steering knuckle.
You don't have to replace the upper control arm, but I'm going to, since the bolt joint has a lot of play, feels loose. The rubber around it is gone, and also the rubber over here is cracked and worn.
Using a 21mm wrench, loosen the upper control arm side nuts. Then install your new control arm. Apply some pressure on the lower control arm and use a long pry bar to adjust the strut so you can install the lower bolt. With the new strut in place, it's time to put everything back on. Tighten all the bolts according to the torque specs. The lower strut bolt to 173 foot-pounds. The sway bar lengths to 41 foot-pounds. The control arm side nuts to 111 foot-pounds. The upper control arm to 111 foot-pounds.
So I didn't have any trouble removing the upper control arm nut, but if you do, you will have to use a hex key to hold this stud in place to keep it from rotating while you remove the nut. Now you're probably wondering, okay, how can I do that when the sway bar link is in the way? Well, you're gonna have to remove it, and the easiest way would be, I'll show you. So you're going to have to loosen these nuts for the sway bar. You don't have to remove them, just loosen them as low as you can. And then after removing the sway bar link nuts, you should be able to pry it out. That way you have enough clearance to insert a hex socket here, and then you'll be able to remove the nut. Alright, so when it comes to removing the caliper, it is easier just to remove the caliper bracket bolts and just move everything out of the way. But when it comes to installing it, this way is difficult because this whole thing is heavy, and trying to align the bracket and caliper with the rotor and the bolts, it's just annoying and difficult. So instead of removing the caliper bracket, these bolts, remove the caliper first, brake pads, and then the bracket. Hopefully I'm able to remove them. Okay. Now we can put this Now I don't have the original nuts, but normally you would fit them inside the stud and they would keep the rotor in place. Bro, what you... There you go.
And that's a wrap. The front of the car feels firm and less bouncy, so I can drive the Merc with more confidence. Next up, I'll be replacing the rear shocks since the rear is sitting low and the muffler be scraping. If y'all found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching and I'll see y'all in the next one. Late.